Hello all and welcome to GW Prime Live. Your where is here. Today we will be discussing the digital shift in lean construction. I'm Pritash Roy, Industry Manager Infrastructure at Geospatial World. We have an eminent and extremely experienced guest amongst us today to discuss about the concepts of lean construction, the urgent need to embrace it, and the role of different digital technologies in its workflow. However, before I introduce our guest for today, let us see why lean construction is important and why we should talk about it more often in AC workflows. Globally, the construction industry is plagued by inefficiencies. Recent studies by research groups suggest that up to 57% of activities in construction projects are non-value adding or pure waste. The industry's average productivity growth has lagged behind that of other sectors, increasing by only a mere 1% annually over the past 2 decades. In contrast, sectors that have embraced lean principles, such as manufacturing, have seen productivity gains up to 3.6% per year. The adoption of lean construction practices has proven effective in addressing these challenges. For instance, the application of lean methodologies had led to cost savings of 10 to 30% and schedule reductions of 20 to 40% on major projects. As the global construction market is projected to grow by 85% by 2030, reaching a value of 15.5 trillion US dollars, the implementation of lean construction principles is crucial to meeting the demand for sustainable and efficient project delivery. In this setting, let me introduce our guest for today, Dr. Bhargav Dave. Bhargav is the co-founder and CEO of Vilin, a Finnish startup focusing on solving complex production management problems in construction with lean methods. Welcome to GW Prime Live, Bhargav. How are you?
Thank you very much, Titas, for inviting me, and I'm very well, thank you. Hope you are well too.
Thank you, and welcome to GW Prime Live.
Thank you.
So Dr. Bhargav Dave started his career in construction industry, leading process improvement and lean implementation projects. He followed it up with research in improving production on construction projects with lean construction methods aligned with information systems. He has contributed to the original research behind integrating lean construction and building information modeling. Bhargav has authored over 45 publications till date and led several research projects in this spectrum. I'm really glad to have you with us, and thank you for taking time out for us and joining the discussion today. I really do appreciate this a lot. So, before we start with the questions, I would request you to share the definition of lean construction from your point of view for our viewers, and then we can take forward the conversation. Over
Sure,
to you,
yeah.
Bhargav.
Yeah, thanks, Titas. And lean construction, as you actually mentioned, lean comes from the manufacturing industry and originally
Yeah.
Toyota's production system. So, as Toyota was sort of trying to figure out how to remain competitive or how to actually sort of remain in the market after the Second World War and come up with a better production management system, they actually came up with a set of tools and methods in order to make their sort of processes efficient. As we know, construction is a fundamentally different sort of ballgame than manufacturing and assembly.
Mm.
In manufacturing, as we know, ever since Ford sort of came up with the assembly line, we have sort of the product that sort of gets assembled and moves across the assembly line, and there is flow established because of that. Whereas in construction, the product remains stationary. We built almost what we call prototype construction because every product is practically unique. Even a similar type of building repeated in a different location is unique. And so lean construction is nothing but set of tools and processes which are built on a solid sort of production theory, which are adapted to construction processes. So we have learned from manufacturing systems and then defined set of tools and processes both for design and construction delivery, things like target value design, choosing by advantages, last planner system, and we have
Yeah.
adapted them to construction. They are designed for construction, which are then standing on the theory of production, which is transformation, flow, and value. So that's basically the word of lean construction.
Right, right. Thank you, Bhargav, for breaking down the definition for us. Uh, So let us start with the conversation with the adoption of digital technologies into this workflow.
Sure.
So how this adoption of digital tools and solutions influence the traditional lean construction principles?
Absolutely. I think that's a very good question. So, lean construction, one of the fundamental aspects you mentioned about waste, we have, and lean is basically trying to target, trying to fight off that waste, which is inherent
Right,
in the system. And in order to do that, we are trying to introduce flow and trying to address value to the customer at the same time. Now, one of or most of these flows nowadays are tackled through one most important flow, which I kind of try to kind of speak about, is information flow. And all the digital systems, whether they are procurement systems, whether they are production systems, design management systems, they're all trying to improve this information flow, which is then gathering all these resources and trying to deliver them as effectively as possible on the construction side, which is then the primary sort of the fundamental principle of lean construction. So this is how
right.
the use of digital tools is actually enabling lean construction on the ground.
Right, right. So, Bhargav, when as part of a consulting unit in geospatial world, we have been doing a lot of research. Trying to identify what are the challenges when it comes to this transition from a traditional workflow to a lean construction or a digital construction.
Yeah.
And one of the challenges that we have already always seen is that people are not able to understand what is the return of investment.
Mm-hmm.
So my next question is something related to this, that how do you measure the success of digital integration in lean construction projects, so that this kind of gives a construction company kind of a view that, okay, these are the type of success rate that you can achieve in your projects when you're uh, dealing with a digital workflow in your construction project.
Absolutely. I think that's a very important question because every organization who's trying to either implement lean or BIM, from business
Yeah.
point of view, they want to know what's going to be my ROI. Now, there are
Right.
tangible as well as intangible outcomes in both of these. You yourself mentioned that, in your own experience and in your research, you have actually realized that there is almost 10 to 30% improvement on production, sort of on
Yeah.
project delivery when we are applying lean construction principles. Now, think about it this way: there are some sort of digital tools which are directly contributing to this waste reduction, to this sort of lean philosophy. I mean, if I talk about some very specific tools, if you think about the
Mm.
most sort of low hanging fruit which are then delivering your ROI, things like clash detection, things like CDE, common data environment, you can actually start to
Right.
measure directly the impact of these tools on the final outcome. So when we say
Yeah.
we carry out clash detection and we are trying to then coordinate our design, for production this way, we can say
Hmm.
exactly how much money is being saved by running that process. And in so many cases, that sort of ROI is already sort of taking care of your investment in terms of your, let's say, BIM processes and things like that. But there are many other digital tools as well. For example, we spoke about CDE, there is document management and so on. There is quality
Yeah.
automation, quality checklisting process and approval process. There are so many sort of measures out there. You can start talking about how much time it is saving, but at the same time
Right.
how much rework it is actually saving in terms of physical construction and so on, which start to kind of give you a very solid ROI measure. But then there are also some very intangible outcomes as well: improved collaboration, improved trust, lowering risk,
Right.
which is not always sort of visible in terms of ROI calculation immediately, but they become
Yeah.
visible, let's say, couple of years down the line when your processes become mature. So I think there are two
Right.
sides of this. The explicit sort of ROI, which we call sort of low hanging fruit, that you can almost sort of immediately achieve from day one, to the ones which are
Yeah.
then achieved, say, at the end of, say, 2 years and so on. So this is how we can start to measure.
Right, right, right. Thank you for pointing out these, and moving to other challenges. So we already discussed about this one challenge, which is a perception-based challenge.
Mhm.
But what are some of the other technical or any other challenge that you see that is there in integrating digital technologies with lean construction? And according to you, how do you think that the construction firms should approach to mitigate these challenges?
That's actually again another very good question. I think there are two fundamental challenges there. One, the silos which are inherent in our industry. Both
Right.
these sort of people, they sit in typical
Mhm.
organizations, they sit on sort of different sort of verticals. And so people
Yeah.
who are in charge of lean construction and people who are then in charge of digital sort of implementation, they are in different departments, and quite often you will find that they are not really aligned and they're not talking to each other. There is also one fundamental challenge in lean, that people who are implementing lean, at least initially and in so many times sort of quite persistently, they are quite skeptical about digital initiatives. So they are
Right.
first and foremost driving the people and process change, which is correct. That's how it should be, by the way. But what they're
Hmm.
forgetting is that quite a lot of that is nowadays enabled through digital tools. So, first,
Yeah.
of course, they can focus on people and processes, but they should not be so overly skeptical about digital tools and should harness them. So, this is the first
Yeah.
challenge I've seen. And from the opposite side, the IT and the digital sort of departments, they are not always aware about sort of what lean tools and processes are trying to achieve, and by
Yeah.
integrating what they can actually sort of harness in terms of final delivery. And that's why they take this technology first approach, thinking that technology is going to save the day, but they are not thinking of sort of people and especially sort of lean and process initiatives. And that's where major challenges lie. And obviously then there are philosophical differences between them, which sometimes sort of cause friction or resistance. But if you of
Yeah.
course integrate them, then the answer that you can actually leverage quite a bit of efficiencies out of them.
Right. Bhargav, you briefly mentioned about BIM, the BIM part of the BIM workflows.
Correct.
So I'm a bit curious about how BIM and technologies like digital twin.
Sure.
What is the role that BIM digital twin they are playing in streamlining these workflows?
Hmm.
I believe there is an importance of real-time visualization in planning which kind of these technologies is an answer to. But if you can elaborate on this a bit further.
Absolutely. I think one of the fundamental aspects, even for my research, was this integration of BIM with Lean, as you mentioned originally in the introduction.
Right.
In construction, if you think about, we have for several decades now, we have actually decoupled design and sort of production and product and process, if you will. So they have been
Right.
decoupled in sort of our processes. We treat design separately, in sort of a silo of its own, and production
Yeah.
is designed in a different kind of silo, and they are then sort of artificially synchronized, or they are then interacting but sort of from a box to another box. And this is what causes fundamental challenges. Once again, kind of you mentioned about manufacturing and how come they are so efficient and we're not. If you think about
Yeah.
manufacturing, take any product for that matter. I mean, take an iPhone, or take any other sort of a computer, or any other sort of a product, a car or an
Hmm.
airplane. The design of that product or the product itself is at the core of that sort of entire assembly process. Your production process for that particular product, the supply chain selection, the actual assembly process, the method which is selected for that, the location that is selected for that, everything revolves around delivery of that particular product, because obviously that's going to be produced in masses. I mean, when you take an iPhone,
Right.
or if you take a Toyota Corolla, it's being produced in millions, of in quantities, or thousands of units in quantities.
Def-
Whereas construction, as we know,
yeah.
is a prototype construction, is a single unit that we are sort of in most cases designing. And because we have
Mhm.
decoupled them, we have major issues. Now, by integrating this lean and BIM, and why sort of bringing BIM into this process, we are once again trying to reconcile the product and process together, because only
Right.
by doing that we are actually answering the two fundamental questions simultaneously. One is that how we are going to build something, which is a process, to what we are building, which is a product. And unless we do that, we cannot really again bring those sort of efficiencies to the fore. And so BIM then contributes to sort of that whole design management workflow. And as we spoke about, there are many sort of examples of design coordination becoming more efficient, the collaboration becoming
Right.
more efficient. You take away a lot of uncertainty from that process by visualization, which means you are delivering value better, because the customer can now understand the value that is being delivered through the product. And obviously then the final outcome through the better sort of production system delivery is also sort of one of the key goals of this.
Right, right. Thank you. That was really, eye-opening and insightful. Uh, moving in onto Visilin right now.
Mhm.
So I do understand. I have gone through the website and I have been in touch with you earlier as well, your team. So I
Mhm.
do understand a bit of the portfolio that you have, the portfolio of the products. It does involve, if and do correct me if I'm wrong. It does involve the construction project management softwares.
Mhm.
So my question is, how are you integrating these technologies that that we already discussed
Yeah.
in these software, and how it is kind of aiding in streamlining the construction workflows and management, these kind of softwares dashboards.
Yeah, no, thanks for asking that. So as we discussed, Visilin came out of my research that sort of I was doing first at Salford and then in Finland in Aalto University. And our
Right.
sort of main purpose was to synchronize this product and process in sort of effectively in construction sort of project delivery. And what we have
Hmm.
done is sort of design our system in such a way that it addresses this top down project management, which is our traditional project management through CPM and all that, so scheduling and
Right.
planning methods, to the lean construction bottom up methods like the last planner system, the tech management, the tech planning systems. So we have integrated these sort of project management techniques with BIM and other sort of digital tools in order to provide a sort of construction teams, construction project teams, sort of the entire
Right.
project management sort of suite, which also includes dashboards and real-time sort of project monitoring through mobile apps. So what we do is sort of take sort of give the operatives the ability to define a master plan, and then let them sort of let the project teams define sort of phase and look ahead plans and weekly plans, and then control that entire process by bringing the updates from the field and sort of removing that latency which exists in our sort of processes. So this is what sort of Visilin does and enables.
Right. Right. So I believe it's quite right to say that these softwares are kind of a tool to enhance the decision making process in a way as well.
Absolutely. As you know, you need
Right.
to, yeah, you need to make decisions at all levels, from, your top level all the way to the ground level. And what we
Right.
sort of enable, both through the system itself as well as the dashboards, is the ability to take
Mhm.
effective decisions. Yeah.
Right. I'm a bit curious about a certain technology, AI, because we have been seeing a lot of use cases of AI across different sectors, different types of workflows. So, how much of an impact has AI has on these kind of softwares and dashboards, especially for your case? Would you share some light on?
Yeah, I think in general, I would say that AI has a tremendous potential, to actually automate quite a lot of the workflows as well as improve this decision making even further. Construction traditionally has been sort of information rich. We have to deal with a lot of information, but it's data poor. We
Right.
haven't had sort of accurate data coming back from the field, and this is where we have struggled
Mm.
for decades now. And first
Yeah.
time now with these sort of tools and techniques such as Visilin, we're able to actually generate this data and collect it in a more accurate way. Now, what AI can do is to then crunch through this data to provide updates, which is not normally possible for human beings to do. So we start to recognize patterns, we start to recognize trends, which are then coming back from whether one organization or cross organization. Of course, for cross organization, we have to deal with data privacy issues and so on, so we have to be very careful there. But those sort of things
Right.
can start to give you insights which you haven't had before. So you start to evaluate your supply chain, you start to evaluate your own sort of project outcomes, better forecasting based on the data that you have received. So let's say if you start to collect trend analysis and say, okay, how is my schedule doing? You're not just now relying on the critical path, but you're also relying on the last planner system and the data that has come back from the field,
Yeah.
and say what have been my constraints, like what is actually impacting the delivery of my project, whether it's materials which is blocking me, or whether it's sort of design deliverables, and how can I sort of reduce those constraints or optimize them in order to deliver better. So
Right.
these things can be sort of impacted a lot by AI. However, a disclaimer here that it's still early days when it comes to kind of our AI systems. So
Yeah.
we're still in the experimentation phase with quite a lot of these things, especially in construction.
Right, right. Thank you. Moving on, these type of softwares, construction management softwares, these kind of means that a lot of data is on in there in the cloud. Uh, it's not just on their systems. So my question is basically related to the: is there any kind of a risk associated, in terms of cyber security, when it comes to this digital transformation process in lean construction or traditional construction for that matter of fact? And if there are, then how do you think these can be mitigated?
Yeah, as long as we have responsible system providers, we sort of take security very seriously. There are certain
Right.
standards that we have to adhere to. We deal with quite a lot of European and Indian customers, who are very sort of sensitive about information security and data privacy. And
Hmm.
all the kind of information stack is then sort of evaluated constantly, not just sort of one off, but constantly, for threats and so on. And
Right.
kind of from that point of view, of course there are privacy issues and there are sort of information security issues when we are dealing with sort of sensitive project information. But at the same time, we mentioned cloud infrastructure. In fact, cloud
Yeah.
infrastructure can be even more secure than sometimes your own in-house infrastructure, because some of these players who are actually operating in the cloud, they
Right.
have very robust sort of systems which are designed for redundancy as well as for security, and they have to serve not just us but many other sort of information system providers. And so they have taken many more measures that a single
Right.
organization, compared to a single organization, that who can take. And so cloud can be quite secure as long as you have thought about your sort of measures in advance and deployed them sort of.
Right, right. That's quite interesting. Coming back to the transition, the transitional phase that we were talking about. From a traditional methods to digital methods or lean construction practices, or maybe from a 2D to a 3D environment.
Mhm.
Based on our research, we have always seen that there are always some bigger players in all over the world who are quite easily doing this transition from 2D to 3D or from traditional to lean construction.
Mhm.
Uh, but most of these organizations are still not there.
Mhm.
So, Bhargav, I would like to ask you what strategies that these firms can employ to successfully transition. Maybe not now, but take like 3 to 5 years, as a timeline, and then but by the end of 5 years, they can successfully transition from a traditional method to a complete digital or a lean construction method supported by digital technologies.
I think, Titas, you partially answered your own question there. You said 3 to 5 years as a timeline, and I think quite a lot of the answer lies in that sort of assumption. See,
Right.
I've seen, because I've been associated with this field since last 20 plus years. People sort of tend to expect answers almost overnight, or let's say, what is my ROI at the end of the year? But these are
True.
some sort of process changes which will require a certain timeline, especially as
Hmm.
some of our processes are so deeply seated, we haven't changed them for decades. And when you have a change management both from lean or digital side, which is going to collide at the same time with these sort of traditional methods, you cannot expect these answers, or kind of changes sort of overnight. So my first suggestion is have this long term view, have a 3 to 5 years horizon at a minimum. Identify
Right.
your key champions, which is the most important bit, people who are passionate and who are driven to kind of implement both these aspects, whether it's a digital sort of a system or a lean construction system. Identify those champions and then design a strategy around how we are going to enable one thing at a time. And I would say start small. Do not try to set your sights on sort of global domination from day one when it comes to process
Right.
implementation and so on, but set some realistic targets for people to achieve, so that they can have that sense of achievement that no, we have done something, and then start to kind of promote that within your organization and then move forward. So that's sort of
Right.
the sort of the realistic way to achieve this, in my opinion.
Right. So basically, patience is the key, and
Absolutely.
again, learn from international case studies or national case studies for that matter
Yeah.
of fact, but good successful use cases, and then try to translate that into your workflow.
Absolutely.
Don't like just
Absolutely.
copy it, but translate that into your workflow.
Absolutely,
Right.
yeah. I mean, there is a lot of sort of there is a big body of knowledge and a lot of literature and case studies available. You quite rightly mentioned that, and you can actually
Yeah.
learn from that and then try and sort of translate it to your own organization, and sort of follow a method.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But still, having said that, and this again has this I'm backing up through research of our organization, that there are some smaller construction firms, or like the ones that we call MSMEs.
Yes.
They have very limited budget, and when it comes to digitalization, there is a high investment, initial high investment that is needed. At least that is the general perception. So how can these smaller construction firms benefit from this digital shift that we are seeing these days, and how should they approach it?
Again, a very good question. And construction is driven by these MSMEs and SMEs. Not just in India but
Right.
globally. And one good thing that has happened in our sort of last sort of decade of evolution in construction tech, especially because you mentioned digital systems, is this growth of startups in all fields. No matter which field you're talking about, there are startups
Yeah.
operating there, and they sort of provide solutions for companies of all shapes and sizes, whether you're big or small. And I think
Right.
what sort of smaller companies should do is, rather than trying to copy the bigger players, they need to think about what solutions are more relevant to me. There are solutions which
Yeah.
are available which are not so, they're very cost effective, I would say. uh,
Right.
some of my friends who are actually providing these solutions, whether they are project management systems, quality management, safety management, they can actually start to take some of these tools and start to deploy them on their sort of in their organizations. So I would say
Right.
that start small, take baby steps, and again,
Mhm.
you know
Right. Right. I think we are almost done with this. Especially like I just looked at my watch and we are almost done with the time. But before we wrap it up, your last piece of advice that you would like to give to the construction professionals who are still hesitant about adopting digital tools in their workflows. Last piece of advice. Take a minute and yeah, please wrap it
yeah,
up for us.
I would say that just sort of take the first step. Take the first step. Put one foot
Right.
next to and next to the other, and you will start to realize that there are many benefits in adopting, whether it's lean construction or digital tools. All you need to do is take that first step, and things will start to become clear. It's just that the fog will start to sort of disappear, but if you sort of
Right.
sit on the sidelines, you will not sort of make any progress. And so it's very important to sort of take that very first step, whether it's lean or sort of digital, either way.
Right. Okay, thank you, Bhargav. We really look forward to interact more with you in the in the future, and look forward to bring your insights on the industry through future collaborations. It was a real pleasure hosting you today at GW Prime Live, and thank you again for giving us your time. And thank you all viewers for joining us. See you soon.
Thank you, Didas. Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me.